Memories. Today is one of those days where I have a lot of them. And the reason for that is that it is April 5th, which is the celebration of Easter for this year. I have mentioned that I'm not particularly religious at this point in my life. I was raised as a Catholic. I did I was baptized and made my communion, so whatever that means. But at that point in a child's life, I think I was about 8 when I made my first communion. I really had no idea what was going on with faith or anything. So I really don't have a lot of strong memories about going through my catechism classes and things like that. I remember the nuns. I remember being in a dark room at the side of the church. I would have to go after my regular school day, which as a kid was not my favorite thing because you had to sit in the room after you'd already sat in a classroom all day and do more basically schoolwork. So not not one of my favorite times for sure. I know there are probably some kids who find it very, I don't know, not important, but they feel like from a young age that they are getting something from the experience, but I don't remember myself having that experience. So, to me, unfortunately, at this point in my life, Easter is not a religious celebration. I have not gone to church for many years now, and it is, that's just the way it is. I've grown away from the church and the teaching, well, not necessarily the teachings, but that's a whole nother story. What I meant to talk about today is just the memories that celebration days in particular, can bring up. And JT and I just recorded our weekly podcast, the CC and JT Amateur Hour. Again, if you are watching this video and you have not checked out our podcast, I hope you will. We are once again nominated in the Women Podcasters Awards in the Authors and Books category. And normally we do talk a lot about authors and books. Today we got a little sidetracked by basically kindness. We did go down I don't know if you would call it a religious rabbit hole, but we talked a little bit about religion and about politics, which we don't often do. And we are not trying to promote any particular faith. We are not trying to promote any particular political party. We understand that everybody has their own beliefs, and we respect that. As I think I mentioned yesterday, I just hope that those beliefs are not used to harm others. Anyway, back to the memories. Let's do something a little bit more fun here. So I mentioned my very vague memories of my childhood getting prepared for my communion, but what I really remember about Easter, there is one very sad memory related to the Easter season for me, because when I was an early teenager, I was I'd grown up spending a lot of holidays with my grandparents, so my father's parents and his brothers. He had three brothers, and usually the only time I would see most of them was at the holidays. I did see one of his brothers very often. I used to stay with that uncle quite a bit, and my aunt, who also happened to be my mother's sister. But the that one particular Easter season was very hard for our family because it was around, I think it was 1977, and my uncle passed away on Good Friday. He was only, I think, 44 years old, and I don't even remember clearly. Now this is about almost 50 years since this has happened. So my memory of the situation is very hazy, but I do recall that the previous Christmas we were staying at my grandparents, and my grandparents had actually moved up here to Nevada from California, and they were living in a manufactured home in an area called Jacks Valley, which is just south of Carson City. And the family was staying with my grandparents. So, since it was a manufactured home, there weren't really bedrooms for everybody. And the grandkids were all sleeping in sleeping bags on the living room floor under the Christmas tree, which was awesome. But I remember not sleeping that Christmas Eve because, all keyed up for the holiday. And then I was hearing noises because when you're staying at someone else's house, it always seems very strange and scary as a kid. Even though by this point I was a teenager, I was still a very nervous teenager. And I remember this particular uncle was trying to get through the living room and not step on the kids, and he tripped over me. And completely unintentionally, I didn't even, move. I remember pretending that I was still asleep. So, you know, I didn't want to cause any trouble. But really, that Christmas was the last time I saw that uncle because he passed away the following Good Friday. And I do have a lot of very sad memories from that experience, but I also have some very funny memories from that experience because when you lose a loved one, even someone that you don't spend a lot of time with, um, I don't think it's easy to process those emotions. And especially as a teenager, when you're trying to process all of the things happening in the world around you. And the the uncle lived in San Diego, and we were in at that point we had not yet moved to Nevada. We were living in the Central Valley of California. So as a result of losing my uncle, this led to my first flight because we flew from Oakland to San Diego. And I remember it was an airline called PSA, which no longer exists, or they may have been rolled into Southwest Airlines, something like that. But it was the 1970s, so it had like they had orange shag carpeting on the walls of the plane, and it was very retro. I remember distinctly because it was my first time on a plane. And the experience of flying to Southern California from Northern California was it was an adventure. I mean, yes, I was sad, but as a teenager, you're very self-centered. So I didn't quite know what to expect because we were going down to my uncle's funeral. And when we got there, mid 1970s, it was interesting that everybody had to get to the church because there was a Catholic mass and there was a Catholic funeral. Um, it was some of his kids, actually, some of his older kids, because his wife actually had kids prior to them getting married. So they would have been his stepkids. But since they were older and they could drive and everything, people were kind of assigning tasks to members of the family, specifically the ones that were in the area, to make sure everybody got where they needed to go on time. And I ended up riding in a Volkswagen van, like a 1960s model Volkswagen van. So, like a surf van, probably had the flip windows. I don't remember that for sure. I do remember the van also had shag carpeting. And I can remember the driver. I think it was my cousin Adrian, I believe was his name. I have not been in touch with a lot of my cousins for many years now because the family drifted apart. But the cousin drove us to the church, but being teenagers, we weren't really on time. And I remember, I don't have really strong memories of the whole experience. I do vaguely remember the church being a very somber experience. I think the casket was like bronze or something like that, but I am not 100% sure about the details of what happened. And I, what I remember better is being in this Volkswagen van. It was prior to when we were all required to wear seatbelts all the time. So we were just kind of lounging in the back on the shag carpet. And they had, I don't remember if it was the radio or if they had a tape playing. It might have been an 8-track tape. I think it was Boston. And, these are the kind of strange memories I had from that experience. So that was a very sad Easter season for our family. And the other strong memory I have from that period of time was that right after Easter, my grandmother got a box of chocolates that the uncle who passed away had sent her prior to his death. And she could never open that box because it was the last thing she'd gotten from him. So it was definitely a very sad and somber time. But as I mentioned, as a teenager, I wasn't quite sure how to handle those emotions. It was a very strange experience. So, on this Easter morning, as we have just passed Good Friday, that's one of the things that popped into my mind. And obviously, as I mentioned, those memories are very scattered and they're not really clear a half a century later now. But it was definitely a very specific time and place for me in my life. And it was very formative. And I did feel bad for my cousins because, I understood that losing a parent would be very difficult, even though I still had both of mine. And I did not lose one of my parents until much later. I think I was 49 when my mother passed away. So I can't imagine what my cousins must have gone through as teenagers having that experience. But there are a lot of happy memories about this time of year too. And they are also very faded and scattered now. It's like looking at those old photographs. You open a box and you have the faded photographs that maybe weren't identified. You don't have a particular date. You can recognize some people, but maybe not everybody. And you're trying very hard to pinpoint some specific things that happened when that photograph was taken. I I have a very few photographs from my childhood because apparently a lot of the family photos were lost somewhere along the way. So the the faded memories I have, I don't really have a lot of photographic evidence. Excuse me. I'm just still tongue tied from yesterday. A lot of the photographic evidence just isn't there to help reinforce those memories. So I kind of have to rely on what I think is correct. And I remember things like getting a new dress for Easter. So normally it would be a nice frilly dress. That was a big thing in the 60s and 70s. I would wear pants to school. It wasn't that time period, but dresses were something that my mom really wanted me to wear. So I would often get a new one for the holidays, and I would get my little Mary Janes and usually some frilly ankle socks. Not when I was a teenager, of course. I think that pretty much ended by the time I left elementary school. But I can remember some Easters where I had a new dress and a new hat and a little pair of gloves. And of course, I would wear them to church on Sunday, um, up until we stopped going because my brother, when he came along, was just too loud. So my mom just couldn't handle the stress, and we didn't really go back much after that except maybe on the holidays. So the memories of those Easters are mostly related to getting my new dresses. I don't remember the dresses in particular. I just remember they were cute and I liked how they looked, and it was fun to dress up a little bit because, like I said, I normally, once I got out of elementary school, I usually wear slacks because I did not want to wear dresses. It was just a hassle. And I preferred, especially growing up in the 1970s, going to the high school in the 1970s, I wore platforms and bell bottoms and I loved them. I still have a pair of platforms I found probably within the last decade or so. I tried wearing them once and I'm afraid to put them on again, but I can't bring myself to get rid of them. I'm actually afraid I might break an ankle at this point in my life, but I had to keep them. And it would be fun to wear platforms because my husband is a foot taller than I am, so I could be more on a level with him. I'm always feeling like the short one around my family. But again, I just don't feel like I can trust myself to walk around in platforms anymore. And they look very much like the platforms I had in high school. They're the strappy sandal type where you had the crisscross strips on the front and then just an ankle strap in the back. And the platform, it's a wedge. It's not like platform heels. It was pretty consistent across the sole of the shoe. It's somewhat flat. It's just about maybe 3 inches high. So see, those are the random things I remember. I remember having a pair of those in high school. So when I saw the shoes had been re-released, I had to get a pair. Really not one of my best purchases because I think I maybe have worn them once and not even outside the house. So memories are an interesting thing. And as we get older, I think our memories become more muddled over time. And like I was saying, if we don't have photographic evidence of a particular time and place, it gets a lot more confused because then we don't have anything to refer back to except our faulty memories. So It's just something I was thinking about this morning. The fact that I've lived through a lot of Easters at this point. I've had a lot of different ways of celebrating Easter. As a child, when we got together and went to Mass, then we would inevitably have a large lunch ish. It was usually probably right after lunch, and we would have the Easter ham and ravioli and things like that. That was our traditional Easter meal. So I do have memories of some of the things we did at that time. I don't remember much about sitting in church except for the fact that I was normally very bored. I usually was not listening. I would be off in my own little world, imagining being other places and doing other things. And I do remember waking up and finding an Easter basket in my room. I'm still baffled by the fact that my parents managed to sneak things into my room without waking me up because I was not a deep sleeper, or I didn't think I was anyway. It took me a long time to fall asleep at night. I was the kind of person that once my parents went to bed, I would have a flashlight and start reading until I could fall asleep. I got into trouble for that more than once. But inevitably, I would find the following morning that there was an Easter basket beside my bed. I had an old school desk, an antique school desk that my mother had found somewhere, and she painted it white. And for a period of time, I had a cage on that desk because I had guinea pigs, and that did not go well. I was not a responsible pet owner, and unfortunately, my guinea pigs did not survive. I was still very young, though, so uh, I have a lot of regrets about some of those things. But I do remember when I did not have a cage on that desk, I would wake up on Easter morning and find a basket there. I also remember, I think it was my 14th birthday. I woke up and I found an acoustic guitar beside my bed because I had asked for one for my birthday. So there are some faded memories, some faded photographs, those, if you remember the old song, those misty watercolored memories of the way we were. So I just thought I would share some of that this morning. And since this is a theoretically a podcast or a video, oh man, I'm I'm expecting my grandkids to show up pretty soon. So my thoughts are elsewhere. But this is obviously not going to be one of my better videos. But the I just had a lot of memories pop into my mind this morning about days past, and thought would share them and to relate them to writing. Let's put it that way. I do use some of these things when I write my books because the Battleborn Bride in particular, there is a lot about grief in that book. Actually, in Passion Restored, I flipped things a little bit, and my main character lost her father, not her mother. So, in that way, I was exploring what I thought, or maybe what I hoped my relationship with my mother would have been as an older adult, because we both had a lot of challenges relationship wise. Um, and I don't know if that really would have changed because our personalities were so different that I did not feel that we were very close, and I don't know if she felt the same way. I did try to bring up some of those things at one point, but I did not feel like maybe she understood what I was saying. And I was in my 20s or 30s at the time, so I was still somewhat self-centered, and I wonder now what our relationship would have developed into, because my dad just turned 85 last month, and we're not incredibly close, but I think we've kind of found an understanding with each other. All of the hurts that we caused each other in the past, I think, have been, I don't know, if not forgiven, at least forgotten, because you know what happens as you age. There are just so many memories that hopefully the good ones crowd out the bad ones. But those are some of the things I'm thinking about this morning. And as I said, just to relate them to writing, I do use some of my scrambled memories in my writing. And I know that some readers are interested to know where a writer gets their ideas. And in my case, at least, it is a lot from personal experience, because there is the whole idea that you write what you know. And I do try to do that to some point. I hope what I write does resonate with someone else, that maybe they've been through a similar experience, and maybe if I don't have any wisdom to impart, I could at least provide them some sympathy and commiseration that we've been through something similar. So those are my very haphazard thoughts on this Easter morning. I am about to go off and shower. That's why I'm wearing a hat today, because we dove right into podcasting and video recording first thing this morning, since we are expecting the grandkids at any time now. And I suspect that once they have gone home, I will be ready for a nap. And I don't think I'm going to get any editing done today, especially since I still have a bit of an energy hangover from yesterday. We had so much fun at the Easter egg hunt yesterday. It was a great time, and I don't regret going, but I wish I had more time to recuperate. Going out of the house is becoming more and more draining the more I stay at home. So I don't know, maybe I need to get out more often. Anyway, I really need to get going. So I hope you are having a wonderful day, whatever you are doing. If you are watching this later, obviously this could be any time of the year because the videos don't go anywhere. So if you are happening to celebrate a holiday or a birthday or some kind of fun event, I hope you enjoy it. Also, if it is something that is bringing up memories, just take some time and sit in them. You may not remember clearly all of the details, but it can be helpful, I think, for us to go through some of the things that are tucked away in the back of our minds until something inevitably brings them to the forefront. It can be a song, it can be something you smell, it can be something you see. You never know what's going to dredge up a memory. So, in my case today, it was definitely talking about Easter and just remembering Easter's past. So, if you happen to decide to stick around and listen to my probably incoherent ramblings about the past, thank you. I appreciate it, because it is definitely not something I know my family gets. I can see their eyes glaze over when I start talking about the past. So I try not to do it very often. So if nobody ever watches this, at least I got it out of my system. I try not to do it to my grandkids today. Anyway, back to have a great day. I hope you're doing well. I'm Cassidy Carson, and this is the life of a writer. Take care.